I want to thank you for joining in on our feature reading today. As Joy said, I'm going to thank our sponsors. Our sponsors are the 440 Art Gallery, the Garner Glazer Foundation, the Park Slope Civic Council, Poets and Writers, the Fife Diggy Dog Foundation, our individual donors, and you, our audience. And we want to thank you for making this programming possible. Today, we are really in for a treat. I'm part of a women's writing group, Alma's Heart Circle, and LeConté is one of our members. So I'm very familiar with her fabulous work. And I was so glad when she said that she would be able to feature for us. So I'm going to give you her bio. LeConté Dill was born and raised in South Central Los Angeles, California, the granddaughter of sojourners of the second wave of the Great Migration. She remains curious about sojourning, migrations, and landing and launching places and spaces. LeConté literally means the fairy tale. And likewise, LeConté listens to, documents, dreams, and creates stories of reimagining. She is a scholar, educator, and a poet in and out of classroom and community spaces. LeConté holds degrees from Spelman College, UCLA, and UC Berkeley. She has participated in VONA Voices and Canem workshops and was a 2016 Callaloo Creative Writing Workshop Fellow. Currently, she is an associate professor of African American and African Studies at Michigan State University. Her work has been published in a diverse array of spaces, such as Poetry Magazine, the Mom Egg Review, Journal of Poetry Therapy, and the Feminist Wire. And we want to welcome LeConté today, but before she starts, just to give you a little tease about her work, here's an excerpt from one of her poems, The 4th of July. And maybe home is a mother, and maybe home has birds of paradise, and maybe home has a porch out front and a yard out there. And maybe home is a daughter. And maybe home is a cooing. And maybe home is a stoop out front and a walk up. And maybe home is a fireworks show at 1 a.m. And maybe a poem is a home. Ladies and gentlemen, LeConté Dill.
Hello, everyone. I feel your love. I feel your applause. You can use, as I said before, you can use the emojis. I'm so happy to be in this space with you, even if it's virtual. Thank you, EJ, for the invitation. And thank you, Joy, for, although we met virtually, for the marketing and for the support and coming to the space. I love this Zoom space. It feels like home. My family is here. You see the Sterlings are in the house. My best friend is here. Dr. Renee Hazler Rowe. So my Spelman sisters are here. My Alma's Heart Circle sisters are here. My UCLA family is here. Zooming in from the Pacific Ocean, take me there with you. My Berkeley folks are here. Other comrades and friends from my various walks of life. So that just brings me so much joy. Although we're not in person, if we were in a poetry space, a poetry lounge, I would invite you to get your whatever you need to feel comfortable and to feel in the vibe. So your adult beverage, your water, your coffee, your tea, your tissue, in case emotions come up, which I allow, your journal. I know my mom has an envelope to write on the back of, to write some notes. So I, as a fellow, oh, she has a whole notebook, not just an envelope. So as an educator, I invite you, if something sparks your interest or brings you some insight, to jot it down and use the chat. I know we'll do Q&A at the very end, but if you have a question, I'll take facilitator moderator privilege and say, put some questions in the chat, particularly if those of you who can't stay the whole time. So shout out to those of you Zooming from the beach and from the park and from soccer games and from your homes and from your living rooms and wherever you are. Let's begin. The first set of poems some of them have been published, some of them have just been in my notebook or on my computer, but they're a group of poems that I like to refer to as Still Away Home. So giving a nod to the Negro spiritual of that name, still away home, as enslaved people ran away, stole their selves, stole their own freedom, but also the ways that still, S-T-I-L-L, that there's still a possibility. So still away home, that's this kind of first suite of poems. And the first one, it begins with an epigraph from Chani Nicholas, the astrologer. Some of us follow them faithfully every week or every month to get a dose of information for the time ahead. And this is from the week of April 24th, 2017 for Aquarius. Shout out to Team Aquarius out there. The epigraph starts with, sometimes what we have inherited is a misinterpretation of the seed idea it stems from. Sometimes it's important to go back and clarify what the original intent was so that we can make conscious the traditions we are taking with us and the ones that we are taking the authority to completely do away with. And with that, a riot always finds us. Canfield, Arkansas, 1896. We're children, babies really. When the fires start, a mob is always ready to take our wages, run us away, always ready to lynch us. When a volley of shots be my lullabies, I won't live to see 30. Sherman, Texas, 1930. They always claim we crazy, always wave an American flag when they beat us down. When the fire don't kill us, they shoot us down. How you gonna hang a nigga when he's already dead? Lynch us in our own neighborhood, then proceed to burn it down. From the smoke, I developed asthma, a quick temper, and I always keep a gun close. Los Angeles, California, 1965. Everything Black was named Watts. Watts bore the brand. Damn Moynihan. The smoke and fires are in the distance, but the gunshots are real close. I can't tell the police from the National Guard, my pressure's up and I'm scared and under martial law at the age of 10. Los Angeles, California, 1992. Everywhere is burning. We've been screaming and nobody came to see. What's the matter? What do we need? At 14, I'm just learning my screams, hearing them for the first time, liking the way they sound. So that poem, just to give you a little bit more insight, my family on both sides of the family, great-grandparents, grandparents, my parents, and myself experienced uprising and unrest. And so if that's, you know, kind of how we were birthed or how we experienced our childhood, what imprints does that leave on us? Speaking of imprints, Rhythm Nation. 1814 birthed the Star-Spangled Banner. 1984 is when Papa made me memorize it by heart. The Olympics were going on up the street and I cheer for Carl Lewis and Edwin Moses because we must root for Black boys because they always running. Cheer for Mary Lou too because of smiles and splits and flips, and Bella Caroli makes everyone win. And since we winning and American, they keep playing the Star-Spangled Banner. Papa writes down every word. Tire factory makes his knuckles swollen, or maybe it's the arthritis. but his cursive is all splits and flips, and I read every word, and we sing it together since we're winning an American. And 1990 is when you named your album 1814. And I get to see you on stage because I was a good girl and I know every word, and we sing them together. Shout out to Janet Jackson, Janet Appreciation Day. This one is called Weekends at Nana's. You were all Newport raspy voice, telling me to draw 4 and the color is green, like the rollers you wore at night, covered in tissue. Made me say my prayers and put Vicks salve on my chest, under my nose. You were bacon crumbled in cream of wheat with pet milk and some Sunny Delight, a perfect cocktail with your shot of insulin. Lift your gown, pinch your thigh just so, you don't even flinch. Maybe you'll be a doctor one day, you say. You were brown gravy over rice, fried chicken grease, don't sweat your hair out, pouring Papa some yak. He takes his dinner alone in the kitchen. You make me say my grace before we eat in the dining room. You were a silver Cadillac with its stereo out, so you bring a radio tucked into the seat cushion between us, roll down Vermont to visit your mama. 10 years since her stroke, and I still call her Gran, twice, hoping she can hear me. You were a caramel brown line up your chest, heart surgery and your heart still open. Love your husband from the other room. Love him even when he locks your children out for staying out too late. Though they're grown, you sneak and let them in, don't realize that they're 30-year-old runaways. You run away to the bathroom, light your Newport, blow the smoke out the screen window. So not to bother my asthma, I'm asleep in your bed and baby girl needs her rest. Shout out to the Dill and the Sterling family that are coming up all through these poems. My first job as a teenager was an internship, and it was at Martin Luther King Jr. Charles Drew Medical Center in the Watts Willowbrook area of LA all day. And so this poem is a reflection that I made decades later about that experience of working in the US American Healthcare Center and working in Watts and working in the NICU and in the ER and in other spaces. It's called Killer King Hospital and Admission. I was on my way, but I lost my mommy. I am already labeled pathology. Don't know how to swim, but I am floating, caught in a glass jar, like a lightning bug. Dare to cross my legs, dare to be dainty. If I'm addicted, then she's convicted. I am so tiny, but still got heart, still beats, still got a mama to go home to. Call me from the waiting room. Call me a trick, but won't call me a mother. My womb walked out on me. Tough titty, said the city, but the nigga still hood. Lift my titty to find the bullet wound. For once, they aimed at my heart and didn't miss. Mend me. Bathe body. Wrap whites, linens, make a mummy out of me anyway. This is an excerpt from a poem called Angels Lost and Found. Dare to keep a kid off drugs, dare to keep you in private school, cursing in cursive. You wanted your MTV to be equal parts NWA, BBD, TLC, SWV. You were Khadijah, Washington, Jamal, Jefferson, Amira. Lincoln freed the slaves, didn't he, Miss Jackson? African, Muslim, Black, Hood. You were Kareem and Magic. Raiders starter jackets, African, Muslim, Black, hoods, braids, fades, and curls. You were busy being a good little girl. You were an earthquake away from a popo beating, homework done by candlelight. You were integrating Black ink on white paper, silent protest screaming that you were tired of hopscotching over red and blue rags. You skinned your knee, your high tops tripping on the blacktop, clumsy and tongue-tied. You were the bastard child of funk and the blues. You were two-faced, but one coin. So I had a vision that my grandmother, Nana Dill, referred in the poem with the insulin and the green rollers. I had a vision or a dream that she came to me and she gave me a pair of scissors and she gave me the permission to cut away. And this is the poem that resulted. It's called Breaking Curses. Give you scissors to cut, stab if necessary, snakes with the same name as you. Gift you permission to hate the hand that held yours as you crossed the street. The same hand that shut the door on you so many times. Gift you chocolate hands and nappy hair, failing every test passed down from East Texas plantations, masters, bastards. Gift you recipes and handkerchiefs and pocketbooks and nail polish. Gift you girly. Gift you a Sunday away from church. This kitchen will grant you enough prayers. Gift you playtime, hiccuping laughter, caramel colored cherubs. Gift you bedtime stories, turn modern mantras. Gift you enough. So when Nipsey Hussle passed away, was murdered a couple of years ago, we learned more about the village that raised him in South Central, including his dear grandmother that comes up in his songs and in his interviews. And we also learned not just about her care of the rapper and of the grandson, Nipsey, but we learned about a little bit about her life, that she had 11 miscarriages. And oftentimes in Black families, we have a narrative of Big Mama had 9 kids, but 7 survived. Or Granny had 5 kids, but 2 survived. And in this contemporary reckoning of the persistent maternal mortality crisis amongst Black women, which some of you in the Zoom work towards combating, it's important to uncover those histories, that's not just a flippant, kind of narrative or sentence of these lost children and of these grieving mothers and grandmothers and great grandmothers. And so this is inspired by Margaret Butte, Building Towards a Marathon. I'm a granny. I'm a mommy. I would have been a mommy of 13 babies. I'm a mommy of 2 babies, born 12 years apart. I come from a long line of grannies who would have been mommies of more. I'm a senior. I'm a citizen. I mean to say, I'm a senior citizen. And we really didn't talk about the lost ones in my day. Had me missing work, missing a period, missing a child not there. I kept trying, had your mama, and she had your brother, and you, and your sister. I'm a granny who's still missing babies. When my baby's baby goes missing, goes to glory, makes his final victory lap, the neighborhood missing, you, Nipsey, I mean to say, Ermias. And I know something about missing. Okay, the next couple of poems were actually written when I was doing my dissertation at UC Berkeley. I was getting a doctorate in public health, and I had the honor and privilege of being engaged with a group of young people from East Oakland, California, and their adult mentors and adult guides and witnesses. And people ask me, why are you writing poems? Why are you taking creative writing classes? Why are you writing poems? You're supposed to be writing a dissertation. And some of you know about that bat cave that we find ourselves in when we're writing our dissertation. And the poems inform my dissertation. The poems helped me cope. I did interviews with young people, but I also invited those young people to come back in the space with me to analyze their own data. And we did that a bit with poetry. And so in addition to writing and publishing a dissertation, I, along with the young people, wrote and published a poetry book called Why You Gotta Call It Ghetto. So this came out 10 years ago. I can't believe it's been 10 years. Some of you were there when it was birthed, the same week I was walking across the stage. Yeah, it's their stories, but I wrote along with them because whenever I teach, I try to practice mutual vulnerability. So I try to engage in the practices that I'm asking my students and my mentees to engage in. So I'll share a couple from that book. I live on a block between two corners. I hear papers rustling, research questions, theoretical frameworks, methodology, preliminary findings, finding out that big kids still play games, still play dress up, suits and bifocals, make a spectacle in journals, at conferences, conclude that the at-risk are at risk, limit themselves to 1-inch margins. I peek at the other corner on 82nd and International, ask questions of my research, poems falling out of my notebook, framed between character development in their walk and their talk, and murals adorning their walls. Youth leaders invited me in to sit for a spell. Storytelling, just like the elders, old heads, OGs. Rocking chair on porches, replaced with swivel chairs in offices. Find out that it's not all bad, but it ain't all good. There's a method to my madness. There's some hope in my hood. And another one from that same collection, it's a sonnet. Learning from Gwendolyn Brooks, I love that Black women are the greatest sonnet writers, and that I practice with this poem that you can write sonnets about the hood. It's called, quote unquote, At Risk. If all you think of me is ill-fated, shooting baskets, rolling caskets, dropping school books, then who waits for me, breath baited? Hold hope with its limbs out, daydream swapping. Drive me to the page's edge, no footprints. There's no mail deliver. There's no address. I run up and down the block, get shin splints, looking for a place to rest, break, recess. Tattoo my name on the corner of my wrist, stake claim, mark territory as my own. On my forearm, the ones who've gone, I list. Tennis shoes on power lines, tossed and thrown. I am the gun underneath your shoe sole, forgotten, but still stuck. No peace, no hole. So the next series of poems, I have to shout out Elma's Heart Circle again. This group of dope writers and scholars and mothers and grandmothers and activists and organizers and can't be limited by labels. But I've been writing virtually with Elma's Heart Circle for about 5 or 6 years, and others of the collective have been writing longer together. We typically come together in April, which is National Poetry Month, and we write 30 poems in 30 days, the 30-30. But often, because we are growing a sisterhood and a collective, we found ourselves coming together in different months and different weeks. Right now, we're writing every Friday, but we've also come together in person. We've come together in healing spaces and spaces of grief and spaces of joy. And in 2019, they helped me grieve and cope and process and celebrate this journey that I'm going to be talking about. So this next series of poems are from a book that is tentatively titled Waiting for a Rainbow. I am shopping it around to presses. So if you are a publisher, holler at me. If you know a publisher, holler at me. It is looking for a home. My Elma's Heart Circle sisters reminded me that it is a home and it deserves a home for the public to learn. In this work, I'm particularly talking about my journey of becoming a mother. And I'm unpacking and fleshing out that journey that was rocky. I often refer to it as a Ferris wheel. So not quite a roller coaster, but a Ferris wheel. It's a circle. And I have a set of poems that I'm going to share with you from that collection. The first poem I'm going to do a shout out. I was looking at the group. I don't know if she's here in the Zoom space, but she's definitely here with me. It's for my dear friend and Spelman sister, Ashley Cummings, who is actually my daughter's godmother. And in that same space of 2019, would send me DM messages almost on a daily basis, checking on me. And this poem is after a poem by Sonia Sanchez that's called For Sister Gwen Brooks. And it's written with that same thought of sisterhood, but also some of the conventions of the lines are after Sonia and after Gwen. Growing a new sister for Ashley. You tell the prayers, don't be jealous of my miracle. You tell the altar, you call out to Yemeya to always bring her tide, for she is a swaddled one. This woman rocking her cradle, you tell the doctor to move gently into the body so she's not startled. You tell the body to ease her into a host full of esperanza, for she is a swaddled one, carrying her poems from block to block so that we can love and breathe and wish and breathe and live and breathe her. This Ash sister called afterlife. In this work of Waiting for a Rainbow, this manuscript, I am taking the experience of quote unquote infertility or delayed fertility or differently fertile and in vitro fertilization. I'm taking it from the shadows to the surface. I understand why sometimes it has to be in the shadows, but I also understand that there's a whole collective of people that think that they're alone and they're not. This poem is called Taking My Eggs, and it starts with the epigraph, Sankofa. It is not wrong to go back for that which you have forgotten. The last face I saw before they put me under was a Black woman. When I came to, I want to find her, tell her thank you. She be a guidepost, but she be a gone ghost. Now, only an offering left, saltine crackers and apple juice, a communion of sorts. They make me tell them my level of pain. Only then do I feel the aching in my side. Only then do I remember that I spread my legs again. Only then do I remember that I be a mama bird with my neck craned. 5 eggs retrieved today. I be hatching hope. Taking them home. I spread my legs again. Doctor calls my name. I'm awake this time. Told to collapse on the table, to let go. I've practiced this in yoga, this surrender. It doesn't hurt, this anointing. They say my cervix is cooperating. Thank you, cervix. They placed 2 of our embryos into my uterus. They say I can sit up and go back to work. But first, the nurse touches my belly and says, welcome home. I finally feel like a home. The next poem is a contrapuntal, and some of you might know, but for others, it's a poem that is in conversation with one another on the page. So I'm going to read it in 3 different ways. It's called Taking a Risk. On the day after my birthday, found out I was pregnant. The doctors were cautiously optimistic because of my levels, said congratulations, said to come back in 2 days. Taking a risk. The day after is when I learned, or that I heard, that no longer could I celebrate this month. Not sure, talking in hushed tones because of my age. Said they were sorry, said I could try again, but I would start bleeding. Taking a risk. On the day after my birthday is when I learned or found out that I heard that I was no longer pregnant. Could I celebrate this month? The doctors were not sure. Cautiously optimistic, talking in hushed tones because of my levels, because of my age, said congratulations, said they were sorry, said to come back, said I could try again, but in 2 days, I would start bleeding. And this is the poem about the blood. Literally and metaphorically, of course. Finding a rhythm. scared of the blood, scarred from the blood, tired of the blood, made from the blood, marred from the blood, wade in the blood, wake from the blood, run from the blood, wring out the blood, ache from the blood, clean up the blood, give up the blood, gave up the blood, saved by the blood, named by the blood, cursed from the blood, mess of this blood, most of the blood, soak up the blood, soaked in the blood, woke up to blood, woke up with blood, woke up in blood, woke up in blood, woke up in blood, woke up in blood. Taking a break. It is hard to write from the echo in your chest, to resuscitate again. It is so damn hard to get yourself out of a gulf. Growing tired of other people's questions when I got questions of my own. Y'all got plans to grow your family? Y'all, a Southern greeting, a me and a him. I am finally a we. Got, the past of get, and the future of get, a getting, a having. Plans, I'm an Aquarian. Planning for the future is a habit. Is it 2050 yet? I'm ironing my daughter's doctoral robe in the next room. 2, an approach, a reaching. Grow, like peaches in the backyard, like birds of paradise in the front, like Nana and Mama know how to do. Why not me? Your, like something of my own, like me and my man, like in ours and in us. Family, I paid like $300 for a sheet of paper to tell me that maybe we were stolen from Sierra Leone. Use Google Translate to understand the whispers of some braided hair woman from Quisqueya who visits me in my dreams. Her name, Lucilla. Her name, Be Light. Carry lapis lazuli in my carry-on on a flight to Mississippi, goddamn. All this uprooting and sweeping up the dust. My man spins earth, wind, and fire tonight. And I think that must be a gumbo. That must be a nursery rhyme. So then that ends that series, but some of you know, or most of you know, that thankfully that Ferris wheel, that journey ended up with a special person who's going to be a special guest. She is Facebook famous, so many of you know her through the screen, and I'm going to invite her here. So give me just one moment. Mama. This is Worthy Wonder. She inspires so many of my poems, and she was born right before the panini, right before the lockdown. She is doesn't always like the paparazzi, but sometimes she loves to be in the middle of the circle, so she might pop in and out. So unfortunately, I had to go back to work, although remotely and virtually, 6 weeks after I had her. So the next few poems are about that space we found ourselves in the summer of 2020, dealing with the pandemic, dealing with uprisings, dealing with continued structural violence, dealing with the racial reckoning. And so I wrote about that. And many of these wrote in with witness from my Elma's Heart Circle sisters. Bye-bye. Worthy and these webinars. I think my baby knows how to work Zoom better than me. Real quiet when mommy's unmuted, stares at me like I have something important to say, real loud when I go on mute. I have been telling her to amplify her voice. She listens, she responds. Must be time to nourish herself for the movement and all. Feeds under the camera's glare, then takes her rest. Wakes up just in time for me to sign off. Smiles for the camera if it's with folks I trust. Beckons me to stop sharing my video for folks that don't deserve to bask in all of our melanin. Black Lives Matter image be my profile picture now. Political education started in utero. So she allows me to tag and hashtag and share links and link up and LinkedIn. And who are all these other babies with mamas that look like my mama? Searching for virtual tribes now that we've all gone virtual. Even our meditation has gone viral. She takes deep breaths with me, seems to know that this balance is hard, the weight of it all, work in the world, and leave meeting, mommy. Tomorrow is another day. So also born in the pandemic is this crown in this iteration. Yeah, so my naps and curls and coils and kinks, I wrote a poem for it. New growth. I think I gave birth to it too. It rises over a face mask. It rises up in protest. Crown, of course. Crown, chakra, shakya, leaves my daughter mesmerized. Be her new favorite thing to stare at. Afro, be her new favorite word. Her babble, we tattle, tell on ourselves. We rowdy, we round out, we wonder where we've been hiding all along. So some of you mentioned at the start of this, I'm in Michigan. I'm a professor at Michigan State University. I just moved here a few months ago, but this poem was written, and again, that summer of 2020, I was at a different institution in the Zoom world, and this is about reflecting upon that. It's a golden shovel poem, a form created by the poet Terrence Hayes in honor of Gwendolyn Brooks and her words and her inspiration. So the epigraph takes from her work, and then the poem is informed, the last word of each line is informed by this epigraph. It is lonesome, yes, for we are the last of the loud. Nevertheless, live, conduct your blooming in the noise and the whip of the whirlwind. Working my nerves. I'm typing from my couch. It be my new office. Office is a precarious term in the middle of a pandemic. Am I lonesome? Yes, because when I zoom into the work meetings for the umpteenth time, I see the screens, the squares, the grid really, a sea of pale faces. We are not the same. Print out your anti-racism statement from the last July and eat your words. Lick up your liberalism. Burp up your bigotry. You of 10,000 reading groups. This meeting could have been an email. And my eye rolling is loud. Just a couple more, or a few more poems to end, and then I'm excited to be in conversation with you all. So this next series of poems, also written with the witness of Elma's Heart Circle. My sisters in Elma's Heart Circle told me, they were like, this is another manuscript. And I was like, really? And now I see, like, yes. So it's a series about inner childhood, going back to the Ferris wheel. I think it'll kind of turn us back to how I began this reading, with home, with LA, with girlhood, with Black girlhood. Being 13, I'm still the new girl, still waiting to get my braces off, waiting for my period, waiting for this teen thing to kick in. Will I like someone and they like me back? I like books. Have to read double. The ones for school and the ones at home, filled with actual stories of folks like me, Black and girl and growing up. I write my own stories and poems. Lots of rhyming for now and lots of happy endings. Stock them up for rainy days and for blue days and for snowy days when this teen thing kicks in. Being 16. Always looking for a party, any excuse to dance. Slow dance, freak dance, you dance, me dance. Ask me to dance, ask me anything. Waiting, anticipating. Movie theater outings, always a group of us, always piling into a minivan and headed to the mall. Hope you hold my hand or graze my hand as we reach for ices and buttered popcorn. Hope I'm picked, hope I'm protagonist, hope my way into another weekend. Homies and homework and home phones with answering machines, with slow jam intros and what's up? Can't come to the phone right now, but you know what to do. Peace. Real cool, old school is what they will call us. Call me back. Call me cute. Call me anything. Know my name next to yours in my journal. Hearts and run-on sentences and lots of question marks. I question everything every day, it seems. Like, why they call this age sweet? Like, when can I taste the sweetness? A couple more. So this is being 17. Pink nail polish to lift my spirits, lift my chin, maybe. Head stays down, so down every day. How long will this last? Think it will go away once I'm 18 and grown. They call me too quiet. Next, they say I got an attitude. Misunderstood. Stand up to my English teacher. Syllabus so white. Spend my lunch hour in the library, searching my way back to Black. Write poems everywhere, notebook, journal, back of the envelope, book margins, even in Spanish class. Senora used to teach in Inglewood, talks about Toni Morrison, and maybe she gets me a good recommendation letter so I can get up out of here, get better someday. And my last offering for this space is for the mommies and the babies, for the sister girls and the Miss Things. Always the pen, always close, always a poem, maybe a map, perhaps a letter for another day. Always a Black girl, prayer, always a song, always a rhythm, always in tune, always a yes, tired of maybes, always a rest. Thank you. I saw the emojis, I saw the chat popping up. I'm so anxious to like look now and read your love and your care and your shout out.
Well, thank you,
Thank you.
LeConté.
More students join, more family join, more friends and comrades join, and even strangers. Thank you for being in the space with me.
Well, we want to thank you, LeConté. It was a beautiful, beautiful walk through the trajectory of your work. It was really, really wonderful to hear you. And I'm going to start the question and answer. It's the question Q&A period. But anybody on the line who has a question for LeConté, feel free to just jump right on in. We don't raise hands and all of that. We try to be like we're still in an intimate space, even though we're on the internet. Okay. So LeConté, I'm going to start off with one of the lines in one of the poems you read. You said, big kids still play games. So I'm going to ask you, are you still a big kid? And if yes, how do you keep that part of you alive in your adult stage?
Really, really good question. Yes, I'm a big kid, Worthy. My daughter is reminding me to find my play or remember my play, reclaim my play. Even like singing to her or doing hand games, I'm realizing like, oh, I don't really know the full lyrics of this song. Like, let me go find out, let me remember. I feel that my play was a bit cut off. As Black girls, there's not enough conversations, but there's emerging conversations and some research about how we become adultified, and we become adultified in different ways. And mine was more around like, be that good girl, study hard, study a lot. I'm the oldest grandchild and child and niece and cousin. And so it's also, be the oldest, be the model. And so I'm now kind of going back to recover, like not just in my poetry, but also my life, that play. And so for my students that are former students that are logged on, I'm the professor that's going to tell you to rest on the weekends and the spring break and to play. And I always say, this is one of my mantras, like play is rigorous. And I know that you can still get the quote unquote work done, but I'm a firm believer that play is work as well. And so in the poem, when I was talking about big kids and their games, I was talking about academia and professors and administrators and the shenanigans of games that they play, or maybe we, because I'm implicated in that. But I'm looking forward to the other games that are joyful and are generative.
Oh, great. I wish I had you as a professor.
Thank you. Come to Michigan.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, cousin.
Hi, cousin. How are you doing? I'm so proud of you.
Jack,
hello, everybody.
Forest, Mississippi.
I am Susie Jackson from Forest, Mississippi. I'm one of those Mississippi gals. And LeConté is my cousin, and I just want you guys to know that we here in Mississippi are truly proud of her. And we love you.
Thank you. I love you too, cousin.
And that taking a risk, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed all of them, but that was resounding, and I do love you.
Thank you. Love you too.
Okay.
The Sterling clan hails from Forest, Mississippi, and although my Papa Jack left in his early 20s, we are rooted there, physically, geographically, and in our spirit and in our care. So thank you, cousin, for chiming in.
And we truly hope that as soon as this pandemic gets better, that we will be able to get together, not virtual, but in person, just to show some love.
Thank you. My family immediately and bigger family have practiced Zoom reunions and Zoom care. Yes. And my family has been part of also engaging or indulging in my practice of meditation. And we've done that over Zoom. And they've been some of my greatest, not just participants, but teachers, that some of this can translate in the Zoom space, although we've lost so much as well.
Yes, yes, yes. You, I'm familiar with your work for a number of years now, and I think the one thing I always enjoyed about the work is that you managed to bring up the unspoken, bring it out in a narrative so that it's not an unspoken anymore. And I was wondering, how do you tackle that when you're actually sitting down to write? Do you intend to write about something that is unspoken, or is it something that just comes through, you know, that muse that we say we have that goes from your arm to the pen or to the keyboard?
Yeah, it's begging and screaming to come out and with that poetic muse. I've been doing that in poetry since I was a teenager, if not before. But I think when I was a younger person and a younger poet, I was still writing, although letting it out and even publishing, but still writing as a secret, like writing in a cryptic form, like, I'm not really sure what she's saying, but okay, go girl, you know. And now I definitely know, particularly, I think also just with like writing communities, not just Elma's Heart Circle, but I've been participant in many workshops with VONA Voices and with Canem and with Callaloo. And so just having other writers of color, particularly Black writers who have, and teachers who have beckoned me to like not hide within my words and not be cryptic. You know, we got to show and not just tell. And so, yeah, my words were always calling for that honesty and for bringing the secrets out. But also, I think witnesses and accountability partners, some of who are in the Zoom space, have asked me to like keep telling it. To show and to tell, because often in writing we say show, don't tell, but to show and to tell is what I'm doing and try to do.
Oh, great. So we don't have a publisher yet for Waiting for a Rainbow?
Yet, but you know, I'm checking the chat.
It's a great book, people. Mention somebody, send her some names so she can start talking to people. I want to commend you for being brave to talk about the in vitro fertilization process that you went through, and the ones that didn't take, as well as the one that did take, and all of that. And it's not, it keeps coming up in our historical history about how Black women, the mortality rates for Black women and their children that are not born still, or whatever reasons, that don't make it into the world. And we all do, the majority of us have that history within the families. Was it hard for you to write those poems, to put those poems out there, or were they just something that was in the moment and almost like a journaling, just to get the emotion and the anxiety out?
Definitely the latter. So definitely is like a journal. In the April 2019, I had just done 2 rounds of IVF. I was pregnant twice and I had 2 early miscarriages. So literally that had just happened. And then we had the 30-30. And I was like, you know, thank you for therapy. Thank you for my husband. Thank you for the few close people that knew, but it was still a bit of a secret, a bit of a hush hush, just because it was so much. I was becoming a chemist and a nurse and a caretaker for myself over and over again. And so that April was literally like real time journal. Like, if we got to write every day, this is what's coming and this is what's coming out. I was still processing it. I was still, and it's interesting and I guess inspiring to myself that like how like beautiful art could come while like I was literally like physically going through it, very much emotionally, still processing. And then like, you know, maybe this is a tanka, or maybe this is a contrapunto, or, you know, coming up like that, the forms of poetry or the free verse that was coming out. And I also felt maybe with the accountability of Elma's Heart Circle that not just to process and journal and kind of vent or vomit, but to show and tell this story and to tell it rigorously. And so to bring my artful self to this journey. And so I think that I'm still answering that question because I was like so in it, and we know whatever we go through when we're in it, sometimes our head is down and we're like, I don't know how I made it through, like not just the process, but also the art that came from it. I was kind of maybe in a trance, maybe possessed, and I received that possession. And it was just great to have a group of other writers, and also some of them being mothers who were able to hold me, and then hold me on the other side of the journey as well. Hold me as I brought the life to life.
Great. Anybody have any questions out there? Step right up.
Hi, daughter. Hi, mom.
Hi, everybody. I just want to
Shout out to her photo collage in the back. That's me at 22 on her left shoulder, graduating from college. I feel like not only is that my mother, but literally like the iconography of her home is taking me back home where I penned most of these poems. So thank you for that art, mother.
Oh, you're welcome. You mentioned the Ferris wheel. Can you kind of elaborate on that?
Good question. So I always say my mom was my 5th dissertation committee member and the most rigorous, because like, you know, yeah, she just brings the amazing, great, nuanced questions. So Ferris wheel, so oftentimes like when we go through stuff, we say we're on a roller coaster, right? I remember going through like my Saturn's return at 28 or 29. And even when people who haven't reached 28 or 29, I'm like, the Saturn's return, it's coming. But if you just hold on like a roller coaster, you'll come out, you know, the roller coaster eventually ends. But this Ferris wheel image or metaphor is the notion that it might not end. And it's not like, it's definitely, you get a bit of a twist and a turning. But you know, if you've been on the Ferris wheel, like you go to the bottom and that Ferris wheel conductor or facilitator, whatever they are, they're like, they kind of give you a look and then like you go back up, right? And I guess there is a negotiation, like if you want to get out, you can. And sometimes they don't give you a look and it just pauses at the end. It's not fast like a roller coaster. It's kind of a slow journey. And so, and Berto, my husband, who many of you know, if not in person, on the Facebooks, we were actually in Myrtle Beach during that same spring, summer of 2019, trying to become parents. And we were at a Ferris wheel and we took the Ferris wheel and took pictures in front of the Ferris wheel. And so I kind of go back to that literal image of us and think about like, oh yeah, this journey is not a roller coaster, or at least for us, it's been a Ferris wheel. So I want to think about that more. It might be not just more poems, it might be a paper coming. I often have cited my mother in my scholarly works because, you know, she doesn't identify as a scholar, but she was one of my first scholars, and there she goes, having me write another paper. So thank you.
Speaking of your scholarly work, do you find it difficult to go back to switch back and forth between the two styles of writing?
Really good question. No, but mainly because when I was dissertating, so when I was doing this ethnography and public health scholarship, I was writing poems. I took a class with Cecil S. Giscombe at Berkeley. I, you know, was doing workshops. Like I said, I was in community and doing readings. And so then I was forming this methodology with the young people in Oakland that's now I've replicated around the country and around the world, even in Johannesburg. Shout out to any of them that are on the Zoom, that I call participatory narrative analysis. So I think as long as I've been a quote unquote formal scholar in the academy, I've always been engaging with, you know, either I'm doing quote unquote academic writing and poetry, or I'm doing them together. So a lot of my scholarship is actually weaving poetry into academic and scholarly spaces that don't always invite it in. And now I'm at the space of my life, but also my career, that sometimes everything is a poem. So I've even had therapists like ask me a question, and then my answer, they're like, is that a poem? And I'm like, it's just an answer, it's just the way I think. And even when I was hearing my biography read back to me, which I wrote, but I didn't write, I wrote as biography, not necessarily as a poem. And I was like, is that a poem? So I think I'm just always like thinking poetically, and therefore everything I write. And I know that, and there's some folks right in the Zoom space that I've been in conversation with that want the permission or want the model to do this in academic spaces. And so I'm happy to provide what I call these breadcrumbs. But I also know that writing in this way keeps me, quote unquote, sane, or at least grounded in the academy. Like, I wouldn't know how to do scholarship any other way. And I know everyone doesn't have that freedom or that permission, but this is like the only way I've known how to do it. And so some of that might be just shout out to the Bay Area and to Berkeley that would allow such scholarship, but I've done it ever since I left in different spaces, in medical schools and in Research One institutions. And so then I teach this way to show other learners that this is rigorous. Again, this is rigorous, this is scholarship, this is scholarly. And I know, because I'm looking at names, like folks out there are doing the same. And I'm so excited that, that I'm providing these breadcrumbs.
Great. Anyone else have any questions? Well,
I'm gonna put my website in the chat so folks can find out more about me and about my poems and my scholarship. And you can send other folks my way. It just launched this summer. I'm so excited that I took the time and the space to kind of compile some more stories of me in the digital form. So definitely check me out there.
Great.
I want to just say a quick, well, first of all, thank you. But, I think a lot of times people are intimidated by the idea of poetry, and people are definitely intimidated by the idea of scholarship. And you make them both so accessible. I mean, what I heard was so much about just a young woman growing up, and this is what she saw, and this is what she heard, and this is what she felt. And, we all have grandmothers, and some of us have, the things that you talk about are so relatable. And I just really appreciate that. And I really appreciate that you're not caught up in the, pardon my language, but the BS of academia. And you must be a fantastic teacher. And I can't wait to read more of your poetry. So thank you.
Thank you. I love teaching and my students, some of, again, who are here in the Zoom space. So I see you. The teaching is keep me in the academy because I feel like there's lots of ways to do scholarship. There's lots of ways to teach and write, but my students and mentoring and teaching them keeps me in the academy. And I'm so excited that next semester or in a month, I get to teach actually a creative writing class, which I've done in different spaces, but I get a whole semester. So I get 16 weeks to teach creative writing with the Black feminists, centering Black feminism. So all the books that my mama had on her bookshelf that I read after I came from school, not because she told me, but because they were there and because they were stories like me, I get to teach those to others as canon, as scholarship. And I did that anyway in my other institutions and in the public health space, but now a lot more of my poetry writing and reading counts as scholarship. Whereas before it was like, I'm doing this, but it's kind of on the side or not marginalized, but not always seen. And now it's seen like in my day job. So I know as writers, we often talk about our day job versus our night job, and I'm becoming more one, which, has been the goal. So thank you for that.
That's great. I'm going to have one last question. So you mentioned a lot of different poets in your, telling of the story of some of the poetry. that you read today. Do you have a favorite poet, and why was that poet a favorite for you?
Lucille Clifton is definitely the favorite. Cheryl Boyce Taylor has said that some of my writing reminds me of Lucille, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I stand, and I stand in reverence of her. But the ways that she is so accessible, the ways that she can tell a story in a short amount of words and lines. A year, I'm losing track of time, but a year ago, oh no, maybe 2 years now, I was able to take a kind of a class by our other comrade, Cheryl Clark, around Lucille Clifton's work and do a deep study of her work. So she definitely, and not just, I'm reading more, not just around her poetry, but also just her life as a mother, her spirituality, just being very connected with African diasporic spiritual practices. And so that too is also, a model and a mentorship or guide for me. So definitely Clifton.
All right. Yeah, she's actually my favorite writer. I always gravitate toward her.
Yeah.
She said what she meant.
Yes.
Even if she was using metaphor sometimes, but sometimes she wasn't. And I think sometimes people, because they say poetry is about the metaphor, they think everything that gets written is a metaphor when it really was something straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't normally remember lines of poetry, but I remember a line from a Lucille Clifton poem called Robert. Mm-hmm. And the line was, he married a master who whipped his mind until he died. That was the line. I was just like, it just flew off the page at me. I was like, whoa. And I happened to be taking a workshop on Lucille Clifton's work. And when I brought it up in the workshop, the instructor was like, oh, it's just a metaphor for something. But something told me that was not true, that whoever that was, she knew that person. And we had the good fortune of her to come to the last workshop to talk to us. And I couldn't resist. So I asked her, who was Robert? And she said, oh, child, that was my uncle. He married that woman and we couldn't stand her. And I was like, the instructor was looking and she was like, oh.
Right, not a metaphor.
Lucille Clifton, the line was just so like a surgeon's knife. So I will always love Lucille Clifton's work. I've loved her spirituality. I love that she was able to write with a house full of kids, which I like, I don't know how you did that, honey.
And even like her line around starshine and clay has just like traveled so much. Our dearly departed Camila Aisha Moon named a book after starshine and clay, but also I'm part of a yoga collective, a restorative yoga collective led by Octavia Rahim, that's virtual, but she's based in Atlanta, that's called Starshine and Clay. So literally when we think about yoga, when we think about kind of above us, so starshine, and then grounding, so like release and then grounding, starshine, clay, and we read the poem every week when we practice. And so the fact that spirit has led me, to poems even when I'm in other spaces. Like,
right? Yeah. So. Well, if the audience doesn't have any further questions, last round, last time, last call. If not, I want
EJ, somebody wrote in the chat, what's your writing process for writing poetry?
Thank you for that question, Andrea. Andrea is an amazing doctoral student and a poet at UC Berkeley who is doing amazing work, community engaged work in Memphis, Tennessee, and a teacher too. So I learned so much from her, from you. Thank you for that question. As you know, as I mentor my mentees, I engage in bidirectional mentorship. So I'm not just teaching, I'm often learning from my students. So thank you with this question for helping me learn. My process for writing, for for so long, I felt like I didn't have a process. And oftentimes when I was applying to writing workshops, I would even write in my essay or my personal statement to get in the workshop, like, I need a process, I need discipline. And I've realized like I definitely do have a process and a practice. It might not just have looked like I thought it was supposed to look. So I always keep a journal close. You saw my mom on the screen, her notebook was closed, right? I got to keep some libations close, water in this case. I definitely like pictures are also important. So Berto and Worthy are right here as well. So although they're downstairs getting ready for dinner, they're also like right here in arm's length. The tissues, as I said, because I allow the emotions to come. I didn't always allow the emotions to come, and so they went to the page, but now they're coming out in different ways. So my space is an important part of my practice. And then my ritual is, I think, being in community. So finding these spaces like Elma's Heart Circle or like VONA Voices or Callaloo or Canem or other collectives, even things that don't have names, but a group of people like, let's write together. That's part of my practice. So having that accountability is really important for me. And reading. I always say good writers are made from good readers. So if you take a class from me, whether it be poetry or not, public health, sociology, you know that Doc Dill has you reading a lot. But again, that's part of the rigor. And so that we can read and be inspired, read and interrogate, read and critique, read and remember, read and recite. That's definitely part of my process too. So thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi there.
That's my Aunt Nini.
Yes, I wanted to just say, I'm so proud of you. I always enjoy hearing what you have to say, what you have to think. And, your words take me back. So it's, it's just heartfelt. And I'm in Colorado right now with the son and the grandkids. Fixing some gumbo. Got that roux going. I know. I see you, EJ.
Shake her head for the gumbo. You didn't make me gumbo. But Nini, I want to give a shout out because I always tell the story. I kind of tell it like in jest, but I was about 6 years old and I was in summer school, and usually summer school's for like if you maybe didn't do well and you need to repeat some things, but this is after kindergarten. And my mom was like, no, like just let's keep learning. Like it wasn't like I did very well in kindergarten, but I was in summer school to keep learning. And so my mom was at work and my aunt was watching me, and I had to look up words. And I was like, Nini, what does this mean? And she was like, go look it up. Here's the dictionary. And back in that day, like the big dictionary that was like this big, like not online, not the little pocket, like the big heavy one. And so I literally was hoisting this big dictionary. And so I credit her now though, right? Like looking up those words in the dictionary, and then later the thesaurus, right? That contributed to me to be a good scholar and to be a good writer. And I was mad when I was 6. I was like, it's the summer, it's LA, like I should be playing, I should be at the beach, but I'm up here looking up these words. But we can have the beach and the words. So thank you for that.
Because I probably took you to the beach after you looked up those words, right?
Not enough, but we can go in June when I'm back home.
Yes, ma'am. Love you.
Love you too.
Give Berto and Worthy hugs from us.
I will.
Okay.
I we usually don't do this, but I'm going to do this today. I want to thank LeConté's family. Because you nurtured this. You didn't try to make it hide itself. And that's not too common a thing. So I want to thank LeConté's family.
Thank you for that, EJ.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your narration.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Really was a treat. Well, our time is coming to an end, and I'm going to turn it back over to Joy. But before I do, for those of you who sign up for our events, I want to let you know that next month in January, we have Frank X. Walker out of Kentucky, fabulous, fabulous writer. And in February, we have the fabulous Willie Perdomo, another fabulous writer. And it turns
one of my
out Willie,
teachers.
and it turns out Willie grew up like 2 or 3 blocks from me in Harlem. So, so please join us in January and February, because we're gonna have some really, really wonderful poets speaking those 2 months. And now I'm gonna turn it back over to Joy, who's gonna take us out.
Well, thank you everybody for coming and for staying. What a diehard crowd, but I think it really shows how captivating LeConté is, and to do an hour and a half on Zoom these days is really says something. So especially, when you're like I said, you're listening to poetry, but it really feels like storytelling. So thank you all for coming. I will put our website in the chat. Once again, I did it a couple times, but it's onebreathrising.org, and you can figure out there where to go and sign up for the mailing list if you didn't already. I know we ask when you register, and we'll be in touch. And as EJ said, we have some fantastic poets. So come back and check in with us, hang out with us. We do this every month, and we're thrilled to do it. And LeConté, we can't thank you enough. And thank you again, everybody, for staying with us. So we'll see you soon, I hope. Oh, LeConté, one more question. Where can we get your books?
Yes, put that in the universe. So definitely you can find more of my writing and links to published pieces on my website, LeContéDill.com, LeContéDill.com. My books are coming. They're begging to come into the world. So I am submitting things, shopping them to presses. So stay tuned.
And
Great.
we will.
We will. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.
We used to say get home safely, but we don't need to say that anymore.
Right.
Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Merry
Thank
Christmas.
you.
Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Bye, LeConté.
All right. Thank you all so
Bye.
much for holding this space.
Give Worthy an extra hug for being such a good girl tonight.
I will.
Okay.
All righty. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.